Communicating risk acceptance is an important responsibility of the internal audit function when management chooses to accept a level of risk that may be considered unacceptable to the organization. According to the program, internal auditors must recognize the appropriate process for evaluating and communicating such situations to ensure that governance responsibilities are fulfilled. Risk acceptance occurs when management decides not to implement additional controls or corrective actions despite the existence of a known risk. While management has primary responsibility for risk management decisions, the Chief Audit Executive, CAE, must determine whether the accepted risk exceeds the organization's risk appetite or tolerance levels. Effective communication helps ensure that significant risks receive appropriate oversight and consideration by organizational leadership. The first step in the process is determining whether the accepted risk is unacceptable to the organization. Internal auditors assess the nature, likelihood, impact, and potential consequences of the risk while considering the organization's risk appetite, risk tolerance, strategic objectives, regulatory requirements, and stakeholder expectations. This assessment often involves reviewing risk assessments, evaluating control effectiveness, analyzing residual risk levels, and discussing the issue with management. Professional judgment plays a critical role because not all accepted risks require escalation. The CAE must carefully evaluate whether the remaining exposure could significantly affect the organization's ability to achieve its objectives or create unacceptable financial, operational, compliance, or reputational consequences. Once the CAE concludes that a risk may be unacceptable, communication with the appropriate parties becomes essential. The initial discussions typically occur with the management responsible for the area where the risk exists. These discussions provide an opportunity to clarify the issue, review supporting evidence, and understand management's rationale for accepting the risk. Open communication may lead to additional analysis or reconsideration of the decision. The objective is to ensure that management fully understands the significance of the risk and the potential implications of its acceptance. This collaborative approach supports informed decision-making while maintaining constructive relationships between internal audit and management. If concerns remain after discussions with responsible management, the CAE should escalate the matter to higher levels of management as appropriate. Senior management may possess broader organizational perspectives and additional authority to evaluate risk decisions. Communication at this stage should clearly describe the nature of the risk, management's decision to accept it, the basis for the CAE's concerns, and the potential impact on the organization. Supporting evidence and relevant risk assessments should be included to facilitate informed evaluation. Escalation is not intended to challenge management authority unnecessarily, but rather to ensure that significant risks receive appropriate attention and consideration from individuals with sufficient responsibility and decision-making authority. When the issue remains unresolved after communication with senior management, the CAE may need to report the matter to the board or audit committee. The board has ultimate responsibility for governance oversight and must be informed when management accepts risks that may exceed organizational risk tolerance. The communication should be objective, factual, and supported by evidence. It should explain the risk, the reasons management accepted it, the potential consequences, and the CAE's assessment regarding its significance. Providing this information enables the board to exercise its oversight responsibilities and determine whether additional actions, discussions, or interventions are necessary to protect the organization's interests. The proper sequence for communicating risk acceptance therefore begins with identifying and assessing the risk, followed by discussions with responsible management, escalation to senior management when necessary, and ultimately communication to the board if concerns remain unresolved. This structured process respects management's responsibility for risk decisions while ensuring that significant risks receive appropriate oversight. Throughout the process, the CAE must maintain objectivity, professionalism, and clear documentation of all communications and assessments. For candidates, understanding how to determine unacceptable risk, identify appropriate parties for communication, and follow the correct escalation sequence is essential for supporting effective governance, risk management, and organizational accountability.